I'm Mark Halverson. I'm the Director of Interactive at Atlassian Software. My group is in charge of the website, design, video, various other things. And I'm out of San Francisco, California. There's my Twitter handle if you care to follow me and listen to me ramble about things. But a little bit about Atlassian. We're the makers of Jira and Confluence. So most often people don't know what Atlassian is, but they've heard of Jira and Confluence. We're based out of Sydney, Australia. We have about 21,000 customers worldwide with about 550 employees. And those are spread across Sydney, San Francisco, and Amsterdam. We do roughly $120 million in sales annually, and it's all driven through our website. We have no salespeople. If you still don't know who we are, we make this. So if you've never filed a support ticket with Magnolia, if you've ever filed one, you've seen our product, which is Jira. And if you've never filed a support ticket, we also make this, which is where a lot of documentation is. So hopefully at some point you've interacted with Atlassian software when dealing with Magnolia. So before I get to where we are today, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we came from and how we ended up getting to Magnolia. But before I do that, I just want to say we tend to shorten everything. Because we have a vowel as the first letter of our company name, we make words out of everything. So www.atlassian.com, we take the first letter, so it becomes WAC. So if you hear me say WAC, I'm referring to www.atlassian.com. And this is what WAC looked like in 2011, so before we started any of our CMS projects. So it was a nice site. It was still working very well for us. We were selling quite a bit of software through it. But it was 9 years old, so it was aging. It was just an old website on old technology. There were about 1,200 pages of content that people had created, so there was a lot of cruft in there. There were a lot of pages that didn't need to be around anymore. A lot of stuff we didn't even know what it was. I inherited the site a few years ago, and it was just a lot to take in. There were about 2,000 JSP files strung together, so it was impossible to find what code was inserted where. It was a very difficult development environment. And this was our development environment. Any time we wanted to make a change, we had to fire up an IDE and dig through all those JSP files and make changes. This was our developer. As you can see, he does not like IE. This was also our content staging environment. So anytime there was a spelling error, anytime we wanted to release a new product, we were back firing up the IDE. This was our content entry specialist. So every time there was a spelling error, it had to go through this guy, and that just doesn't scale, as you all know. And he still hated IE. When we wanted to push out content, we would go here. And for front-end developers like us, this is a scary place because you type some things, you hit enter, and then you do this. Because you really hope it goes well. Because if it doesn't go well, you see this, which means the site's down. When you see this, an email goes to the CEO, and that is not something you want to have happen. So this is a screen that would keep me up at night. We were doing about 1 million page views per month, so we had a decent amount of traffic. I mean, we were selling $120 million of software annually, so we were dealing with quite a bit of traffic. But it was all in one language, yet this is where we wanted to be. We wanted to be in Europe. We wanted to be speaking the native language to people so you could buy our software more easily. So that led to our requirements for our POC. We needed to be in multiple languages. We needed to have a clear separation between layout and content. We needed delegated authoring, so the people closest to the content were the people fixing the spelling errors. We needed a clear staging and QA environment, so we weren't pushing stuff out to production and hoping it worked anymore. And we needed a way to roll things back if things went badly. And that's when we started our search for a content management system. And our search went kind of like this. We were in a conference room, and I was sitting with Willie, our developer, and I said, "Hey, what's a good CMS?" And he said, "My friend's using Magnolia. That's pretty cool." That's how we found Magnolia. And while Willie can be kind of angry when he hasn't had his coffee, he is not the angry nerd that convinced us to use Magnolia CMS. I'll get to that in a minute. The nice thing about Magnolia CMS was that it was in Java, which is something that our developers were very comfortable with, so it fit into our architecture seamlessly. We were already fronting our Tomcat server with Apache, so we just put another Magnolia server in there, and then based upon certain URL patterns, we'd funnel traffic either to the old site or to the new site. And for our POC, we did a simple 40-page site just to see how things worked. So that leads us to our pilot. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you IWAC. International WAC, get it? IWAC. IWAC was pretty revolutionary for us at the time. As I said, we were in one language, and IWAC was international. We were now available in 10 different languages. It was local. We had pages for 33 different countries, and it was scalable. Because if you do the math there, we had 10 different languages for 33 different countries for 40 pages, so we had 13,200 new pages of content that we were rolling out with IWAC. Actually, we scaled that back a little bit. We decided to do 4 languages for 7 pages, 3 languages for 4 pages, and then 2 languages for 33 pages. So it was 106 new pages of content. So a nice, small little POC that we pushed out. So why did we need this? We were expanding into Europe. We were hiring a whole bunch of ambassadors in Europe. And in order to do that, we wanted to prove to those potential job candidates that we spoke their language. Our Japanese website, which is pictured here, was getting a little old. It was on 2 previous design versions of our site. We had the spelling error problem, as I alluded to earlier, and we had no staging process. So we really needed some way to stage content before we pushed it live. We needed it to fit into our existing architecture, and as I showed earlier, we found Magnolia, which fit seamlessly. It was perfect. We needed delegation of content authoring, so the people closest to the content were making the edits, and we wanted to be both international as well as local. So we needed a way to have both country-specific pages as well as translated pages. We also wanted a seamless user experience between the JSP site and the Magnolia site, so you wouldn't actually know if you were on one or the other. So we slid Magnolia in very, very seamlessly. That allows us to have a phased approach to integrating content management into our normal workflow. But it also created a workflow. Now we had a way for editors to push content to publishers who actually verified the changes and rejected them if things weren't good. It also gave us a clear progression from staging to production with a QA process, which is something we hadn't had before. And this is what it looked like. It looked exactly the same. You wouldn't even know you were on Magnolia or the JSP site. In this case, we were on the JSP site, but there's a small little drop-down. It's hard to see in this resolution, but there's a small little drop-down that let people choose what country they were from. We let people self-select what country they were from because we wanted to funnel traffic into this site very, very slowly because we didn't know how it was going to scale. So you had to discover that that drop-down was there and actually pick the country. Once you picked the country, then a little bubble appeared that showed which country you'd chosen. So in here, the person had chosen Australia. So now they're actually having content served up by Magnolia CMS as opposed to the JSP site. If they were to click on that little bubble, they would go to a local page for Atlassian, in this case Atlassian in Australia, where we showed where OGs were happening, Atlassian user groups, local customers, how to find local partners. It was just a page for people in that country. And we had 33 different pages just like this for 33 different countries, all in local language. We also translated the main pages for our land products, which were Jira and Confluence. And those were just to 7 different languages. So in this case, we have the Confluence page in Japanese. Now, we didn't want to translate all of Confluence's content because that would have just been a huge translation problem for us to solve, and we didn't have the time for that for our POC. So we just translated the home page or the overview page, and then for other pages like the pricing page that we didn't translate, we had a little meerkat that popped up and let people translate the content using a Google Translate widget. This allowed people to go through our funnel and read the content in their local language without having to go off to Google Translate and translate it themselves. This was all in Magnolia. So this was really revolutionary for our content editors. They had never been able to edit content before. They were never able to come in and see how many characters fit in the hero area and see if it looks ugly when they say too much. And that was pretty cool. And our translators loved it too because it allowed them to see in place what their strings are going to look like. It was designed to be the fastest WAC yet. We had this overview page that we completely remodeled and allows you to understand what Jira or Confluence did in 90 seconds or less. So very concise on information and lets you move on to the next step, which was trying the product. If you want to see what it looks like, you can try it now. It's still up at Atlassian.com/local, and you can see all the different local pages. So we had success. Or did we? Our IT group didn't view this the same way I had viewed it. They basically said, well, there's not much traffic going to Magnolia, so we're not 100% certain that it's going to scale. And they put it in their project plan months and months in advance. It was kind of, yeah, we'll move to a CMS at some point. You've got a way to push pages out now. And it wasn't the success I wanted because I wanted change fast. So let's shift gears a little bit here and talk a little bit about April Fools. At Atlassian, we take April Fools very seriously. You might remember some of our past jokes. In 2008, we had the pair on chair, which is great for pair programming. In 2009, we had Jira Solver. So your IDE can practically type code for you nowadays. Why can't your issue tracker solve your issues? Huh? In 2010, we had Four Walls, which was check-ins for developers. So if you've ever checked in code from your cube, Four Walls is for you. Get it? Four Walls. 2012, more recently, we did Irked, which was Jira for anything that annoys you. You can check it out at irked.me. And then our hit of this year was spooning. So distributed version control is the hot thing right now. So if you've ever forked code, the next step after forking code is pair programming, which is spooning. Try it out.
Here's my favorite computer game, AngryNerds.
And in 2011, we had our breakout hit, which was AngryNerds. AngryNerds was a joke unlike anything we'd ever done before. It was pretty simple, really. It was just a landing page with some quotes on there. We had some social sharing built in where you could share your favorite nerd. There was an interactive game in the middle where a nerd actually sat on an Aeron chair, and you click on the nerd and you'd throw him at ones and zeros and he would squish bugs. So the thing about this game is it's actually an infinite loop. You can never win this game. You literally just click a nerd and you score some points. And you would just keep going and going and going. There was actually Facebook integration, so every 6th level, you could actually throw your friends from Facebook. So on this next level here, you're going to actually see my picture, and I'm sitting on the Aeron chair, and I threw myself. So you could just cycle through all your friends on Facebook. It was pretty fun. But like I said, it was an infinite loop. You could never win. But the day we released it, so on April Fools, we woke up, and our support team actually sent us this. Some guy actually wrote a script to have his computer play AngryNerds all night long. He scored 26 million points and filed an issue with our support team saying that you can't win the game. We sent him a t-shirt. So like I said, this was different than any other joke we'd ever done. Rovio, the makers of Angry Birds, actually tweeted this, which is actually when it took off virally. You'll see right here, they actually gave us a quote, cease and desist. Get it? But the other thing that made this different from any other joke we did is that it was on Magnolia. So for the first time ever, we're always writing these things to the last minute. We could actually change the text right at the last minute. And our content editors were coming in here and editing quotes and things right up to the last minute. So it was awesome. The other thing that made it different is that it went viral. So we normally do, 100,000 views a day. We actually did 1 million page views in one day, which was a lot. That was a lot for our servers to handle. And our old server, we actually saw this quite a bit that day. It was terrible. So the bad thing about this is while Magnolia was staying up, our old JSP server was going down. So you could look at AngryNerds, you could play that game all night long if you wanted to, but you could not buy our software. And that was the point where IT came in and said, when can we get on this thing? So finally we had success. So the nice thing about getting a fresh start and moving on to a content management system, getting rid of everything in your old infrastructure, is you get to take a step back and kind of do things right. and think about the problems that your website's trying to solve. So we decided to scrap everything, including our brand. We decided to start completely over. And that's when we led to our redesign. This is the redesign of our website. The thing we started when you're doing a redesign is a logical place to start is with your logo. So this is what the website looked like in 2011. We'll take a look at this again. But the place to start was with our logo. So our old logo had a lot of problems with it. Some are pointed out here, not the least of which it looked like a devil or, a buffalo. I don't know, like it had a horn. We used the same font as LOL cats in all caps, just like they do. So we were totally hip back when LOL cats was hot, but it was getting kind of old. The outstretched figure, this kind of man standing like this, is used everywhere. Like, if you're using that guy, you're not standing out from the crowd. In fact, one of the urinal cakes in our toilets back at the office had a little guy standing like this. So we were literally peeing on our logo all the time. But if you are going to use an outstretched guy, and we couldn't depart from Charlie entirely because that's part of our culture, you want to stand out a little bit. So we wanted to get away from kind of the traditional outstretched figure to something that like had a little bit more character. So that's when we started sketching and drawing and sketching, and that moved into digital, where we literally looked at hundreds and hundreds of ways to draw Charlie, which led to our final five candidates or runners-up. And you can see that actually none of these made it to the final listing because nobody liked these either. But we modified these a little bit and ended up with the logo that we have today, which it got rid of a lot of the problems visually. It's a little bit more hip-looking. It just stands out from the crowd. We applied that to all of our products. So we have an entire suite of products. All of them got fresh logos as well. We slapped it on T-shirts, put it on signs, kind of made it real. And suddenly we had our new identity. And people embraced it. It was great. I alluded earlier that we had come up with the fastest iWhack yet, the fastest whack yet. We had rethought the landing page for the product and made it possible to think about or understand what a product does in 90 seconds or less. So we wanted to take those learnings from iWhack and apply it to our new redesign. So this is what the old Jira landing page looked like. You'll notice that to get to the overview page, it's buried under 4 levels of navigation. We got up to 7 levels of navigation on some pages, so it was pretty ugly. We streamlined that. We created 3 levels of nav. We gave more space, more air. We made it possible for people to look at the page, look at the overview, understand what the product does, look at the pricing, understand how much it costs, look at what's new, understand how often we release, and then try the product. It's that simple. Very streamlined funnel. At our 5th level of nav in the Jira features tour page, we had 7 pages, completely dense with content, multiple different screenshots that you could zoom into. There was just a ton of stuff to read. So if you were bored one night and wanted to learn how to use Jira, you would be reading for hours just to figure it out. So we simplified all that. We moved everything about the product right onto the overview page and put everything into tabs. So you simply flip through these tabs using Ajax, so there's no page refreshes at all. You just flip through, learn about the product in short little bits of information about the features, go right through the screenshots, and it was a really nice user experience. At the bottom, we put information about our customers, a latest blog post, you can see some fresh content, how to find us on Facebook, all that. And in the bottom right-hand corner, so if you literally read the entire page, there's a call to action. So if you read the whole thing and you still didn't know what we wanted you to do, click that button. Very simple. So we're moving all this content actually from all these feature tour pages, which are great for SEO because there's a lot of content on those pages, a lot of words. We didn't want to lose that search engine optimization. So we actually implemented this in Magnolia by using a parent page and then sub-pages for each of the tabs. That means each of the tabs have their own meta information, their own unique URL, their own keywords, basically all the things that a search engine is looking for. And the site actually behaves differently if you're browsing with JavaScript turned on or JavaScript turned off. So you can actually browse to these pages independently of the Ajax. When you double click on one of these, you're editing the page. In this case, we're looking at the overview, highlights, reel page. The content editors just come in and put these bubbles in just like they would normal content. So it's not as confusing for them to have to deal with like this tab structure and all that. It's very straightforward. When you search for a string, so in this case, we're searching for configurable web interface. In Google custom search engine, you search for that string, and it would actually bring up the tab that that content is on, as opposed to just the page that it's on. So you can find the content very easily. If you want to learn more about how we did this tab stuff, Willie Paoli's talking tomorrow morning about HTML5 and the history API and how we accomplished this. So that was our pilot. That was our redesign. From there, we released that back in October. It got some great press. Various design blogs picked it up, thought it was a great redesign. We're very happy with it, but with web development, you're never done. So we're constantly looking for ways to refine that site and make it better. These are a few of them. One thing I've learned with Magnolia is there are a lot of ways to do things wrong. And we have definitely done things wrong. And we're here actually at the conference to learn a little bit more about how we can do things better. One of the missteps we made very early on is that we were just creating templates willy-nilly. For every page we wanted, it was a new template. So every time a product was released, we'd create a new template. AngryNerds was its own template. Everything was a template. And we were getting sick of it because this drop-down is really hard to navigate when there's a lot of templates. There's like 100 of these. And I know there's a better way to do it. I hope I learn this week, but one of the ways that we decided to get around this was to create what we call the campaign template. The campaign template is very similar to the SDK. When we started using the SDK, we found that it was a little too limiting for us. We tried to create our landing page using the SDK, and we got stopped up on in the upper level nav. We were like, we can't get past this. We didn't know what to do. So we created what we call the campaign template. And with the campaign template, we basically have infinite configurability because it's a blank slate. And we use this pretty much exclusively at this point when we're releasing new pages. So this is what it looks like. When I create a new page, I basically just get a clean slate. There's upper level nav, but nothing else. And in this stage area, we can add content, a content section. And in that content section, I can choose between a 1-column or 2-column layout, or 1-column layout with a white box around it. We could add more of these, but this is all we've needed so far. So in this case, I'm adding a 2-column layout without the white box. From there, you can edit the heading. So we're here to steal your geeks. Don't worry, this is old. So we were coming out to Europe to do a recruiting campaign last year, and this is the page for that. So we're here to steal your geeks. You come in, you add content. You can pick from various different content types. That can be a code block, a content block, an image, various different things. In this case, I picked a content block, put in some text, and from there it's just repeat. So I added some images, some tabs, some social stuff. I changed the nav, got rid of the upper level nav, and I just keep adding content after content after content until the page is done. When the content editor is satisfied, they just look at the content, and this is what the landing page actually ended up looking like. And based upon the different components we've put in, we've basically not run into anything that we can't do at this point, so we're pretty satisfied with this approach. The next thing we implemented was What's New pages. Our product marketing managers were asking for landing pages for every release we did, and these landing pages were orphans. They would have a spike of traffic and then never be visited again because they stopped promoting them and stopped tweeting about them. So we tried to rethink how we could have both people find where What's New information is, as well as make it easier for us to manage page sprawl. So we created a What's New page. So it's right in the main nav. There is overview, pricing, What's New, and What's New is the third thing you visit. And on that What's New page, it's just a simple overview of what was new in that release, including potentially a video, various videos. That's a clear call to action. And what this has allowed us to do is basically make it self-service for releases for product marketing managers. They just come in, archive the old page, create a new one, and they fill it out, and they're able to do their release, which is great for us. Finally, A/B testing. We're always testing, constantly running tests. And the tool that we chose for that is Optimizely. If you've never used it, it's an awesome, awesome tool. It was created by the guy that did A/B testing for our President Obama's last campaign. And it's very simple. You just put in the URL of the page you want to test. It comes up with a WYSIWYG editor where you click on the content you want to change. You can edit it, move it, change the color, whatever you want to do. In this case, I created 3 different variations of the hero area of this page. And click Run. When you click Run, you get a small snippet of JavaScript that you just place into your page to run. We actually made that a little simpler. We added an option to the page dialog. So our content editors can actually come self-service run these tests. They just check the checkbox, set up their Optimizely test, and they can run it. When they're running their test, there's a nice results page that you can share with your team that shows you which test is winning. In this case, the test was inconclusive, but this just gives you an idea of what the results page looks like. So in conclusion, everything has not been perfect. We have run into a few issues. One of the things that really we don't understand, I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody from Magnolia about this yet, but we use WebDAV and our FTL files are actually stored on the server. And it's confusing to me why they're not versioned. Like, why can't I roll back different versions of these FTL files? We tried getting them into Git. We tried various different things, but there isn't a way for us to version our FTL files. So it's a little bit scary for us because our developers actually have to ping each other in chat to see who's editing what when. And so far it's worked out fine, but we're trying to figure out a better way for that. We find security a little difficult to configure, and this is becoming more important as our site gets bigger and our company gets bigger, because we want to allow people to edit only certain branches or trees. And I know it's possible, but that dialogue is very, very overwhelming when you're digging through it. And it's also be nice to be able to test in some easy way where I could impersonate a user without having to create a new one or change their password or whatever. So that's one thing that we've struggled with a little bit. And then finally, upgrade to 4.5 has been painful for us. I don't know if other people have had problems, but we're still trying to work through those. Seeing the things with Magnolia 5, we definitely want to get through those issues, but it hasn't been a completely seamless upgrade. With that, I say thank you. If you want to contact me, my contact info is there. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, or I hope to speak with you at some point during the conference. So thank you.
When you selected Magnolia, I wondered, did you also consider other products, and what were the reasons for discarding those?
We started looking at Alfresco, actually, because they're in kind of the portfolio of the company that invested in us, and didn't get very far. Like, I found Magnolia just really straightforward to get installed, and the concept of what a template is and a page and all that stuff was just a lot more straightforward to me. So actually, we looked at that. We considered WordPress for like 2 seconds. And once I put Magnolia on my laptop, I was like, this is it. This is so easy. And I showed it to a few people, and it just made sense to people. I think the little green buttons, as annoying as they are when they're in the way and you can't click on something, that just makes sense to people. They understand this is where I edit this, and it resonated with our content editors and translators. So,
Thanks.
You at Atlassian are specialists in integrating your applications, your own applications mutually. When we think about Jira and Confluence, are there any plans to integrate Magnolia into this portfolio as well?
Well, actually, it depends on what you mean by integration. We have another product that my team manages, which is called university.atlassian.com, which is actually, could be an entire another talk. I won't go into it now, but it's built on top of Magnolia as well. And part of that product is kind of bragging rights of being able to say that I learned something. And we're building some integration between the university product, which runs on Magnolia, and Confluence, so people can put badges and things on their Confluence profile to prove that they learned how to use various products. So that integration currently is pretty high level. We're building it using just gadgets, open social gadgets, which is something that someone spiked, I'm forgetting his name now. he's probably in the room. I'm very embarrassed. But he spiked a gadget integration for Open Social with Magnolia, which is pretty cool because it allows you to create gadgets on Magnolia that can be surfaced in other applications. And both Jira and Confluence are consumers of gadgets. So that integration is pretty straightforward. It's just content that's served up in gadgets. Other than that, we don't have any other plans for integrating, but because the architectures are so similar, it'd be pretty straightforward were we to want to. Yeah.
Hey,
awesome.
One more, just the last one. You mentioned Optimizely. Are there any other tools you integrated in Magnolia?
Oh yeah, we use Optimizely for A/B testing. We use Google Analytics very heavily. We use a thing called click density, which is basically click analytics that lets you see where people are clicking and hovering. That's a really good tool for us just to kind of hone in on what the funnel should be. I'm blanking on other ones that we use. Google Custom Search Engine. Yeah, Website Optimizer, which is now kind of built into Google Analytics. We use that a little bit, but that's the main tool set that we use. Yeah.
Since I started talking, maybe one more. You right now translate the pages to multiple languages. How do you handle the translations? Is it done by people in-house, or use some professional translation services, or?
So we've tried both professional translation as well as in-house. Professional translation does not work very well for us because of the technical nature of our content. We actually released IWAC using translations.com, which is a good service. They know what they're doing. It was very easy for us to get content over them, get it back, and get it into the system. But when we actually released it, it was actually a little embarrassing for us when people in other countries read it because some of the content just didn't make sense. Which, we kind of glossed over that with the whole IWAC presentation, but our first try at translation was not a success. Since then, we actually have hired the ambassadors that we created that site to do, so maybe they saw it and were embarrassed for us and decided they wanted to come help us, I don't know. But the ambassadors came on, and we have an ambassador in Japan, in Spain, and in Germany. And those three individuals are now basically the content owners for those three countries. We're looking to translate into Russian and Italian currently, which we're going to use professional translators for. And that's going to be basically a control group to see whether having in-house people or external translators is a better route for us. Overall, the translation workflow for us, export and import is great as far as the Magnolia translation tool. Our biggest struggle is QA and allowing people to see the content before it's ready to be released, because a lot of people don't have access to our network. So we want to have partners, like a Russian partner, check the content first to make sure that it's good enough. Currently in the size and state that we're in, where we're acquiring different companies at different points in time, we can't just give them access to Magnolia behind the firewall or give them a login to look at it. So we're struggling to figure out a way for them to look at it before we release the content. That was a really long-winded answer, but we use a little of both. Yeah.
Well, just talking about translations, do you have one content tree or separate content trees?
We have one content tree for our WAC. Yeah. We have multiple content trees, but our translation workflow is to have one content tree, and then the different content nodes have different translations. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I guess that's it. Thanks.